everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Inside High School Sports. Alex Brasky alongside Nate Ryder of the Batavia Daily News. Nate, another jam-packed episode this week. We continue to bring you the latest throughout all sorts of high school sports. We've had riflery, basketball, hockey, wrestling, swimming, and this week we have cheerleading, Nate. So we have everything right here for you on Inside High School Sports. But jumping right into it, Nate, we'll begin with our top story, the Notre Dame hockey team. An incredible weekend this past weekend up in Buffalo at Harbor Center, right next to Key Bank Center. That's where the Sabres play, obviously. They played the World Juniors at Harbor Center, and I believe Canisius College plays there. So it was a great experience for the Irish being able to play in such a fantastic facility such as Harbor Center. But the big news was they're kind of a choke job. They're blown 4-0 lead that they built in the first period against Frontier on Saturday, and then they came back with a dramatic 4-3 comeback win over Hamburg on Sunday, and followed that up with an early week victory over Canandaigua this past week in overtime. So the Irish are really hitting their stride right at the right time. And I talked with Coach Staley, and he says just the difference that one game can make coming back from that blown lead to come back the next game. He said that was huge for his team.
It's all about confidence. You know, they could have gone completely the other way after blowing that lead. I remember you were there and you were texting me. It's 4-0. I was like, go home. This game's over. And, next thing you know, they blow it. They very easily could have come out the next day and lost 6-0 and gotten smoked by a good Canandaigua team. But no, they responded. They came back. And I like what Coach Staley does. He always gives his team chances to play in some of these big situations, whether it's tournaments or, like you said, at the Harbor Center. And, it really sets these kids up for the postseason. And you're right. He's kind of said it all year that he thinks his team is going to take a little while to get there. And I think he really thought they'd be there by the end of the regular season going into the playoffs. And it looks like they're starting to hit that point.
Yeah, and Coach Staley is really excited about where his team's at right now, as is his team. They commented on it as well, how much that win on Sunday did for them in my interview with them after that big win over Hamburg on Sunday.
Coming back after a game like yesterday is not easy to do. That was a bitter pill for our team, but it was a learning lesson, and we tried to put the big boy pants on, and we had a good talk last night on our group meet, and we had a good talk before the game. But this was a good Hamburg team. We knew we were playing the better team second today, and we knew that this was going to be a challenge. But this is the first time we've come from behind to win a game this year. First time that we've been losing going into the third, and then they scored. We were down by 2 with 10 minutes to go, and we made it happen. So I think from a confidence standpoint, knowing that we can beat a good team like this and come back from some disappointment yesterday is really big for these guys, and it shows some character that I was looking for in them and a coach. So I'm very proud.
Now, Alex, you came up big today. Yesterday wasn't your best game, I'm sure you'll admit that, but today you really came through, made a bunch of big saves, especially there at the end in the last 15 seconds. What did it take from you to just what I asked Coach? You put yesterday behind you, and you came out here and you put forth a good performance.
It took me not to give up and just keep on trying. Because we can't give up. If we do, then we won't win. I just focused on the pucks and the shooter, nothing else. I focus on the shots, I make the save, and that's about it.
Now their goalie had a nice game as well, along with Alex beside you. What did he do that made things tough on you guys, do you think?
He was making some big saves in the third. Our coach just telling us what to do. We listen, we do it, execute it.
It was Coach. He said, going in the third period, he said they got their bounce. Now it's our time to get ours, and that's exactly what happened on that last goal with Alonso. We got a really good bounce, and he was able to bury on an opportunity, and we were just able to stick together as a team and pull this out for the win.
Oh, we kept working at it. We didn't change up our game. We made them adjust to us, and we kept on stretching the ice, opening it up, shooting the puck. We talked about shooting the puck. We talked about what we needed to work on in the group chat all last night, and we stayed up late thinking about that loss, and it was hard for us, but we came back here. We knew we needed to split up here in Buffalo, and that's what we did.
Now, speaking of up here in Buffalo, it was physical hockey out there both games, but it seemed like both teams respected each other. It was good hockey all the way around. How fun was it to come up here and play in such a good environment like this in such a great facility?
Definitely, it was really cool being here in this nice facility where Sabres play around here. It's just a good atmosphere, great food, great people in the crowd. It's just awesome.
It's really nice. The locker rooms are really nice. It was really fun to come out here and watch a junior Sabres game before we got on the ice, and it's just a good atmosphere.
A loss like yesterday, we talked about it after the game. You were hoping it was just one hiccup, and it turned out to be that. But how much better and more momentum can you gain from it, leaving this good taste in your mouth rather than that bitter pill and that bitter taste in your mouth after last game? What's the difference that just one game can make like this?
So, seasons are long, and you're going to have a couple games where you fall down throughout the year, and you're going to have some games where you really step up. We stole a game earlier in the year against Gage Skyline. Okay, that was a game we probably shouldn't have won, and we did. And we lost the game yesterday that we probably should have won and didn't. And so these things tend to even themselves out. We talked about that too, and that, hey, let's just get back on track and play the hockey we know we can play. And but the big thing for me is the character that they showed coming from behind. After a tough game yesterday, being down by 2 in the third period, tired, we could have just put the tent up, and they didn't. And that shows me, as sectional's approach, that we're going to be a hard put out, I think, for whoever we get. We got senior night now Tuesday against Canandaigua. That's going to be a battle. And then we got the following Tuesday night against Brockport. That's going to be a battle. So we are in playoff mode right now, and I'm happy that we could come out on the positive side of this one.
All right, Nate, now to the hardwood, where you were at Oakfield High School, I believe.
No, Bergen.
Bergen High School, to watch Oakfield versus Bergen boys. Dramatic game. Oakfield ends up coming out with the win 60-54, avenging an early season loss to the Bees. And quietly, the Hornets have won, I believe, 6 or 7 games in a row, and they're really making a push toward the postseason.
Yeah, and like you'll see in here, they kind of like it that way. They're quiet, but those 4 losses were to good teams, and they weren't by that much.
Yeah.
And this is a team, when you see them, they're not going to blow you away by their size or their athleticism or their speed. But, I have to say, Ryan Steller is one of the most underrated high school coaches in the area, because what he gets out of those kids is impressive. And that team is playing so well that the other night they were just awful, literally awful in the early going of that game. And I really thought I'd be talking to Byron Bergen, but they just settled in and they figured it out and they played their game. And like you said, they've won, I think, 6 in a row or 7 in a row. They're up to 12-4. I think they currently sit at number 3 in their class. I was just looking, and this is a team that's going to surprise some people, because nobody's talking about Oakfield. You talk about the GR, you're hearing about Notre Dame and Elba, and they're kind of just sneaking, hanging around and doing their thing. So.
Yeah, and you asked Travis Weedrich about that in this upcoming interview, and he says his team likes the underdog role. And you hit on it. The Oakfield coaching staff is underrated as it comes, and it fills up almost half the Oakfield bench with the amount of guys they got. Mike Anderson and Coach Korkowski, who used to be there for years. He still has been there for years.
And Coach Steller gives Gary Korkowski a lot of credit for what he's been able to do, and that's a great person to have by your side as you're kind of trying to make a run here.
Yeah, and they've done a great job. Like Nate said, they get the most out of their kids. Their kids play hard for them. They seem to love to play for them, and it's a perfect storm when you're trying to make a sectional run. And here's Nate's interview with Coach Steller after a big win over the Bees this past week.
They play tough basketball. Rocks hasn't prepared. We finished this one. I thought last game we didn't finish how we were supposed to. They finished it. This time around, we made the plays at the end and came out with a win, a much-needed win.
A slow start tonight. I don't think I've ever seen an Oakfield team in the past number of years go that long without getting on the board. What do you think the reason was for the slow start?
I don't know. I think we were over our heels at first. We just came in really pumped and then just caught us by surprise, but picked it up second half. We knew we had to get to it. Second half, we knew that we were coming out struggling, and we knew we had to pick it up. This is a big game for division, and we knew we had to finish it closing.
Oh, it's challenging, but we just stick together and play team defense, and we get the job done.
You guys had that tough loss to Elba where you were up on them. You probably should have closed it out. You've won 6 in a row since then. What's kind of been the difference here?
Just sticking together. These guys, yesterday at practice, we're running defense, they're talking, they're diving around like it's game day. That, and then on offense, sharing the ball. getting composed and guys stepping up and making big plays. Not just these three, anybody they're playing for.
You know, it's pretty funny. At the same time you guys are playing, Elba and Notre Dame are playing. I think more people think about those teams than you guys. You know, do you guys like being kind of under the radar a little bit?
We do, 100%. I mean, we like when teams sleep on us because we'll surprise them.
What do you guys really have working here behind the scenes?
I mean, we're all family, honestly. I mean, in school, we're all close, hang out of school. We're brothers. I mean, it's like Hornets basketball has always been that.
All right, Nathan, before we move off of boys basketball, just to touch on two of the games of the week. Elba versus Notre Dame, you already hit on it earlier, but maybe the game of the year. Elba up 15 early on in that game, early on in the second half, that is. Notre Dame comes storming all the way back behind Colin McCulley, who finished the game with 9 3-pointers. Notre Dame takes the lead down the stretch. Then Elba able to tie the game at the buzzer on a Zach Marcial 3-pointer, And then the Lancers went on to win it in overtime. And they actually took the lead on another Marcial 3-pointer, so he came in through clutch multiple times in that game. But could have been the game of the year, and you were at Oakfield Bergen that night, but you saw the previous two matchups between these two teams, and just talk about that rivalry. I mean, that might be the greatest rivalry in New York State.
Yeah, you know, those are two teams right down the road from each other, and more often than not, they're always very good. And you know when I went over and talked with Colton Dillon and Coach Zambito last week, they were kind of looking forward to this one. And you know, each one of these three games has been so close. You know, that either one could be 3-0 or 0-3 in those games. And you know, it's two quality teams. You know, I think Elba has the advantage a little bit because Notre Dame's shorthanded. Mm-hmm. You know, they had a player quit selfishly on them, and then Cody Henry got hurt. He's out for a little bit. So they're down to only like 6, maybe 7 guys at the most. But, you know, even with that, they played hard, and you saw some great individual performances. You mentioned McCulley and Marcial, but Dillon had, 38 again? And
him and McCulley both had 38 points. It was incredible.
You know, and what Coach Zambito and his staff does with that team is pretty impressive. And, you know, they kind of, you know, like the Notre Dame hockey team, like we mentioned, they could have folded after blowing a huge lead to a rival like that, but they didn't. And, you know, Notre Dame chose not to foul at the end of that game and let Marcial get a relatively open 3. So, like I said, it could have gone either way. All 3 of them could have.
Yeah, Notre Dame actually did foul once. They had the ball in the backcourt, and they fouled once to get the ball to the front court, but then with 4.3 to play and still 2 fouls to give before they would send them to the line, I think they just decided to play it out, but you're right, it turned out to be a mistake. Marcial banks in the 3-pointer, banks open an Elba, apparently. But that was an exciting game. And another exciting game, maybe not a game that came down to the wire, but exciting if you're a York Golden Knight fan, because for the third time, York and Kalamum met this past week, and York finally able to get the better of the Red Raiders, 75-58.
Fear the mullet.
Yes,
but,
yes.
You know, that's a huge win for York because I think that, I mean, they beat Red Jacket on the road in Red Jacket, which was a quality win, but beating a good Caledonia Mumford team like that means they're here. They're for real. They're a quality team. They're well coached, and you know, and to beat up Caledonia the way they did, it just screams impressive.
Yeah, and that's another great rivalry, too, that's been budding over the last, 5-10 years or so. But they usually meet 2-3 times a year, and maybe even 4 times this year if they both get to the finals. But those are a couple exciting games that we saw from around the league this week. But moving on to another sport, cheerleading, Nate. Our first cheerleading special of the season. And our buddy Chris Metcalf was able to stop out and chat with Coach Cheryl Hayes and the 2-time defending sectional champion, Perry Yellow Jacket cheerleaders.
Coach Cheryl Hayes in the middle, her 18th season, 7-time Perry, 7-time sectional champions. They've actually won the last 2 sectional champions. Ashley, what's it mean to be part of this this program that you guys got over here in Perry? Just such a strong competitive program year after year.
Cheryl has built up this legacy with the team. We've really been strong every year. She holds really high expectations for us all and pushes us every day, and it's so great to be on the team.
Well, it's just like an honor to be on the team to begin with. Cheryl has very high expectations for tryouts, and she pushes us very hard. And sometimes it makes it seem like she comes off mean, but it really does help us to be a better team, and she really pushes us to be the best that we can. That's how we're the team we are today.
Just talk about the Perry tradition of cheerleading.
Well, it started way back when, and as I said, I was a sectional champ. I had all three of my daughters on the team, and they all won sectional championships. And there's a lot of pride here, as you know. Cheering for our basketball team has always been special to us as well. Our community supports us, our school supports us, our families of the girls support us, so that's what makes our program so special.
Coach, you guys have been to the New York State tournament the last 2 out of the last 3 years, Coach. Is that the goal every year, to kind of win the sectionals and get on to the state meet?
Well, long-term goals, yes, but my goals are, as the girls, what do I always say? It's usually just week by week, day by day, we have goals, we set goals, and I always tell them, who are we against?
Ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what I tell them, so it starts from there.
Livingston County cheerleading has really gotten some good quality teams every year. You got Leroy's always in there, Avon's in there. You know, the strength of Hornell, Dansville.
Yep.
I mean, it just goes on and on with Livingston. Coach, how does that kind of keep you guys sharp?
Well, we're all really close in our league, and we're all friends, and we push each other, we support each other. So that's definitely very helpful.
How are you guys right now? You think you're peaking right now?
We've been pushing hard, and I think like our first two competitions, we got grand champs, which is highest score of the day. And since then, we've been pushing to improve our scores even more and practicing our tumbling and execution, everything, just to be the best that we can be.
Cheering for Perry. You know, next year you're gonna be in college. I mean, what are you gonna miss about Perry cheerleading?
I think at this time I'm gonna miss Cheryl the most.
Okay.
I just love how she always pushes me to be the best that I can, and even with academics, she always pushes us to be the best we can be.
All right, Nate, now finishing up this week's show with Alexander Wrestling. I stopped out and chatted with Coach Tom Aldinger and a few of his guys yesterday. One had a little bit more to say than the other one, but that's neither here nor there. But the Trojans have 4 wrestlers ranked as number 2 seeds heading into the sectional tournament, which begins tomorrow at various locations around Section 5. Mitch Geiser, Ethan Heineman, Ben Merrill, and Spencer West, all number 2 seeds in their respective weight classes. So a Trojans program which really reached its peak a few years ago with Dane Heberlein and Matt Geiser, among others, seems to be on the road to success again this season, and they have 4 guys that realistically could come away with a sectional title.
Yeah, I think, you know, team-wise, they're a little lacking in numbers in terms of filling out, you know, so they may not come away with a team sectional title.
And I think that's kind of how things were when they reached their peak. I don't think they had the huge team, but they had the talent at the top.
Yeah, they had a number of guys that were sectional winners, and this is another one that, you know, Coach Aldinger and his staff put together great wrestlers year in and year out. You know, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter. It's like a factory with these guys.
Yep.
You know, they all start at a young age, and you mentioned Geiser, his older brother was one of the good ones a number of years ago. And,
yeah, state champ.
you know, and you see a lot of these names repeating over and over again, and you know, they start them at a young age. They got a good youth program. They work them all the way up, and you know, they get wrestlers that aren't just looking at sectional titles. They want to get to that state meet and make some noise.
Yeah, and that's what Coach Aldinger hit on. He says, just want to make sure you're wrestling your best at this time of the year and you're really putting your best foot forward. And it's not just about this week in wrestling. If you don't come away with the championship, you can still go on in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
In other sports, you lose the championship and you're done. In wrestling, it's all about where you place and how you finish. So regardless of if you win or lose that title, you want to make sure you put your best foot forward. And another one that deserves a lot of credit with this Alexander program, a former Warsaw coach, D. Google, does a great job with the Trojans. He was on hand as well. We did a feature on him last year. One of the great guys in local wrestling, and you talk to Coach Aldinger, he has nothing but praise to say about Coach Google. But we spoke with Ethan Heineman Mitch Geiser and Coach Aldinger on what to expect from the Trojans coming up this weekend.
Hey, we're just looking for our guys to wrestle tough. We've been pushing toughness all year long. You know, when it's a long season, you've got so many things that play into the season as far as injuries, illness. Everybody's fighting through all the different things that they got to do to get to postseason. Now these guys here, they've been working really hard. We have high expectations for them going into the postseason.
I'm making sure to go to all the practices, get the extra practices in. Making sure not to think about it too much. I don't want to get too nervous, and just making sure I'm my best right now. It's my favorite time of year. It's better than Christmas to me, really.
Now you got a lot of coaching support here. Obviously, you got 3 great coaches here, 4 actually, if I'm not mistaken. How much easier do they make it for you guys? Just knowing that they're in your corner and they have so much experience collectively that anything that comes up on the mat, that they can bark out some instruction to you and help you on the spot.
It's awesome. It makes you feel safe when you're wrestling to have a really good coaching system.
I think it's just a great mix of personalities. You know, you get to know each other. Because the one thing, when you're in the room every day, you know, fighting it out every minute, every day, trying to push these guys to their best. You know, when you try to make it light, you try to make it fun, but you also want to, you know, at times you want to push these guys so they're pushing each other right through the wall. We're always trying to push for them to try to stay at ease. I mean, I think these guys actually have it within themselves, and you see them, and you see the success that they have throughout the seasons, and one year after another, and building to those final seasons. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're ready, and we're excited for them.
What are you looking forward to most at the upcoming sectional tournament?
I'm just there to wrestle.
All right, Nate, that's going to about do it for this episode of Inside High School Sports. It wasn't as jam-packed as usual, but jam-packed in terms of the amount of sports we cover. We try to cover at least 3 or 4 each week, and we've been able to do that thus far thanks to, obviously, our cohort Chris Metcalf, along with ourselves going to these games. And there's been a lot to talk about over the last few weeks. A lot of big wins for teams that are on the rise, a lot of good stories around the area, undefeated teams, championship-level teams. Just been a great winter season so far.
Yeah, and then, you know, we still got a couple weeks left to go, and you never know what's really going to shake out at the end. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of basketball teams looking at sectional title runs. You know, we just talked about the wrestlers. You know, Notre Dame's hockey team's looking to make a run. You know, it should be real exciting, and, you know, I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Nate. And
how was I on that Super Bowl prediction? That game go under?
Yes, I think it did.
As a
Chiefs
matter
and
of
under.
fact. Chiefs and under.
Yes,
Listen to me.
Nate, the degenerate gambler, as we know. But thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Inside High School Sports. We hope you join us next week, and we'll see you next week.